Howdy, Americans. I've been running around doing a bunch of some interviews and things like that. So I had a little time to kill, decompress a little bit. The house visitor is gone. So now hopefully my blood pressure can resume to somewhat normalcy for a little bit. What we're going to talk about today is it was a funny thing. When I always mention when I dispatched for the Delaware State Police, that was a very, very good time in my life. Very, very proud of the time I was with them. Met a lot of good friends. 99.9% of them were troopers, but man, it was some special times for many, many reasons. It's like a fraternity. It really is. Like a big, tight, close-knit unit. But so anyway, I was friends with a guy named Mike Nolan, and he was a trooper, and we used to lift weights together all the time. He was a big boy. He was stronger than me. He was a little bit taller and thicker than me, but back then I was pretty chiseled, and I was pretty proud of my strength, my size, and not a whole lot of body fat, but anyway, we did a lot of weightlifting training, and when we did that, it was a lot of like power lifting. So it was like building your upper chest. We did a lot of leg work. I mean, we did it all. We just didn't concentrate like on chest and biceps like a lot of these bodybuilders, and then have like little chicken legs. No, we did it all. But so when I wasn't working, I lived real close to Troop 1, which is Penny Hill. That's in Wilmington, Delaware. So I would hang out and loiter, and my buddy Mike was working the desk. He was like the desk sergeant. They always call it desk sergeant, but sometimes it would be filled in by a corporal, whatever. But he was working the desk, and they had a TV. It was like a raised platform. So when people would come into the entranceway and everything, they had a sliding glass window and they could talk to people. But basically, they were raised up a little bit. So one day we're just hanging out. I think it was ESPN or something was on, but I don't think they were showing it, but they were talking about it or something about like it was like the Boston Marathon or something like that. So we're just general chit chat, right? So this guy, he would like to bust nuggets, as would I, So that's why we probably got along so well. But I made a comment. I said something like, one day before I die, I'd like to run a marathon. You'll never do that. He's like, I'm like, I was getting mad now. Mike, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And he goes, well, there's Ceasar Rodney marathon's coming up in a couple months. Why don't you run that? I said, all right, I'll do that. Don't you worry about that. I'll do that, right? So the funniest thing, I thought I was like King Kong back then, and so when I was younger, I was like really fast, like as a receiver, like I ran some crazy fast times for the old days, and but I was not much of a distance runner. That kind of bored me, But I figured, if I put my mind to it, I can do it. No big deal. So one thing we kept talking about was he would periodically check. And he goes, "You training for that half marathon yet?" I said, "No, but I'm registered." But I said, "I got it. It's no big deal, right?" So this is so funny. I don't even think I can describe it where you could visually, see and comprehend the whole thing. But I'm gonna try. But so I've done absolutely zero running up until a week before the race. So in case anybody doesn't know, a half marathon is 13.1 miles. I think a full marathon's, obviously 26.2. But it was nationally ranked as one of the toughest half marathons because there was so much hilly terrain and so many different, at times you're running across different types, you're not just on asphalt, it's just really crazy. But anyway, so I'll never forget. It's about, I want to say it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I want to say I started training. This event was on a Saturday morning, Saturday or Sunday morning. Matter of fact, it might have been a Sunday morning. So I'm pretty sure this is how it went. I may be off by one day, but basically on a Monday, I decide I'm going to go out and run 3 miles. So I go out and run 3 miles. No big deal. Piece of cake. I got that. I rest the next day on Tuesday. Then the next so that would be Wednesday after that, I go out and run 3 miles, right? Mind you, I'm preparing for a 13-mile, marathon. It's a long distance running thing, and that's never been my forte. But I'm like, I'm tough. I got this. So then on Friday, I go out and run 6 miles. This is the only training I've done. 3 miles, 3 miles, and then 6 miles. And then the race is, I'm pretty sure it was on a Sunday because there was like no downtown traffic. On Saturdays, it would be busy. So I know a lot of the roads had to be blocked off for this event. So I'm pretty sure it was on a Sunday. I want to say it's like April, somewhere like around April-ish. And so I've never done this before. So I pay, you get your little number and all that. And this part, I'm like, it's like the tortoise and the hare, I've got this. I know how to do this, right? I'm convincing myself I've got this. Well, it comes to find out, Mike, my buddy Mike Nolan, there was a lot of traffic control at different areas. And I'll never forget this one intersection. I think it was Rockland Road, or maybe Route 100. I forget the route number, but he was there doing some traffic control at one point in time. I'm going to come back to that. But so we start off, I say there must have been 1,000 people in this thing, probably at least. And so we start off, we go down this little winding thing, and then we start going up this real vertical hill. It's like a small mountain basically, and real steep incline. I'm like, all right, they're challenging us. And I kid you not, this lady, she was real famous for running these half marathons and marathons, but she had to be every bit of 75, 80 years old. And red-haired lady, I think her name was something like Betsy or something catchy with a C on, like Patsy, Betsy. I think it was Betsy. So I see this little old lady just literally like pass me by like I was at a stop sign. And I'm chuckling to myself. I'm going to find her up on the side of the road somewhere, right? Well, let me tell you, I never did see her again, and she beat me. She beat me hard. But so I'm going. So it's funny. So at the first 3 mile station, they have like these banquet tables. I think they had like 2, maybe 3, and they have these little like Dixie cups of water, so you can run by and grab one, rehydrate, throw the cups on the ground, and people clean that stuff up, and then you keep moving on. So I'm like, no problem. I got the 3 mile mark, but I'm just pacing myself. I know I'm not going to win the race, this marathon, but I'm like, nope, I just gotta finish this. I promised, I made a bet, I'm going to make him look like an idiot. So 3 mile mark, get water, 6 mile mark, get water. Then we get to the, around the, I think it was like 10 or 10 and a half mile mark. I was hurting. I was starting to cramp up real bad. Well, back then I drank a lot of coffee. I still drink a lot of coffee, but I probably had 2 or 3 cups of coffee that morning, just killing time. And no, that's the worst thing you can do. Coffee or tea, anything with caffeine is going to cause you to cramp up. I wasn't, I should have been drinking water, before I started. I lived and learned the hard way. But this is where I get really embarrassed. I'm at like I said, I forget where they had it exactly, around the 10 and a half mile mark. And I know there's more rough terrain going down. And I know when you go down, and so basically I get to the 10 and a half mile mark, and they've already packed up the banquet tables in the water. So I'm like, oh, heck. So Then I started struggling. So I remember going past that. I'm like, man, I think I'm going to have problems now because I was starting to cramp up and the water would have probably helped me. And I start going down into like a shaded area. It was called, I think it's called Rockwood. Started going down through this one area, and there's a trooper Pedden was there, and I think at that time he was probably a corporal. Well, this guy, I idolized this guy because this guy has done the Ironman competition in Hawaii. And if anybody doesn't understand what that is, what you do is you I forget the exact order. Uh, I think it starts off you swim 2 miles in the ocean in Hawaii, then you get on a bicycle and you bike 115 miles, and then you run a 26-mile marathon all in the same day. And you obviously have to train for that. It's not, it wear you out. So out of 1,000 people that whatever year that Ray participated in that, he finished around 300th, like, but he also slipped some discs. And I remember him telling me when he ran that, he basically he was running on adrenaline because he was in so much pain. After that, he just like his body was numb, but he just had the mental fortitude to carry on. So I see Ray about the, I don't know, like little bit past the 10.5 mile mark or the whatever it was, and I see him there with his wife. And here's another reason I always respected Trooper Pedden was because he had a white German Shepherd named Teddy, who was the father of my white German Shepherd that I named Elsie. So so there was a lot of whatever you want to call it, energy between us because we had a bond. And so I'm like I can't even like run forward. I'm almost walking like I don't know how to describe it. With I can't do it on. Just picture like an elderly person who's like 90 years old in a nursing home. I'm really struggling because now I'm like my thighs are cramping up, my calves are cramping up. Basically, my lower body was really hurting the muscles that were working. So now I'm kind of hunched over and I'm basically jogging like a duck. Very slow pace, but I'm like I can do this. So I'm going, and I'm like really struggling, but I'm like, it's I didn't have the adrenaline like Trooper Pedden had to do what he did, but I was getting some adrenaline. I was hurting really bad, and the last 2 or 3 blocks, when I came around that corner, and then you had Ceasar Rodney's a big monument in downtown Wilmington, in the Rodney Square area. That's what it's called. And so that's where the finish line was in front of the Hotel du Pont. And that's where my mom also worked at the jewelry store at that time. So I'm literally coming up the last 2 or 3 blocks thinking like, I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. And I was mad at myself for not preparing because when you run long distance and you're doing powerlifting, you lose upper body strength. So we were making such great gains in the weightlifting avenue that, so I kid you not. I crossed the line. I wasn't the last one, but I definitely was not in the front of the pack. But I was way behind, and I think at that point there was a couple other troopers that like one was a regular long distance runner. He participated, and I think Ray had even like met me at the line, and some people were But I was literally hunched over. I felt like I was 90, 95 years old. My legs were so cramped up. And I was so mad at myself because I really should have prioritized my training. But, the one thing I can tell you is I did run the half marathon. I did complete it. I wasn't planning on setting any records. But so that's that. Oh, so let me back up. When I'd say where Mike Nolan was when he was doing his traffic control at his intersection, it might have been 2 or 3 miles into the event. And like he's out in the intersection and I'm trying to get his attention. So they put those flares out on the road. So I'm trying to get his attention. And yeah, I'm in, like just regular, running shoes. Oh yeah, I'm trying to get it. And I step on a hot flare. That was some G Money stuff right there. But woo, you talk about high stepping. Woo, I was getting it after that. I picked up the pace real quick. But anyway, that's it. The reason I'm doing this story is because YouTube friend named Tish Ross. She has a channel called No Judgment Here with Tish Ross. And she made mention she was training for a half marathon. So it reminded me of this story. So I thought I'd share it with everybody. Hope everybody has a beautiful day today. Remember, it's Valentine's Day, but more importantly, it's Taco Tuesday. All right. Take your honeys out for some tacos. Adios, amigos.